From the age of 14, he spent 10 years in and out of prison and received a total of 19 strokes of the cane for drug trafficking and armed robbery. Today, he's a successful lawyer, a director with Invictus Law Corporation. He was nominated by Straits Times for the award of Singaporean of the Year. Darren Tan, welcome to Inconvenient Questions.
Thank you for having me, Wisla. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Now let's cut to the chase. I can't describe it. What a journey. What a journey. I mean, today you're a respected lawyer, a father, a doting father of two young girls, I gather. And not that long ago, you were an incorrigible thug, to put it mildly.
Right.
It's almost like you have lived two completely different lives in one lifetime.
Yes, I think you can put it that way. I'm surprised myself, to be honest.
How often do you reflect?
Not as much now. I mean, when I was first out of prison, I was still very tuned in to the previous life. But I guess as years go by, you have other priorities. You get busy with what you're doing, and then slowly, you really stop thinking about your past life. But this is a very good forum and an opportunity for me to maybe perhaps reflect a bit about what happened in my previous life. Right.
Well, talking about reflection, right? Let me ask you this question, and I hope you don't mind my asking you this question.
Not at all.
You've clearly turned over a new leaf, but have you been able to come to terms with the number of lives that you would have destroyed? Families torn apart because of especially your drug trafficking.
Yes.
How do you forgive yourself? Have you been able to forgive yourself?
Yeah. So even up until today, my biggest regret has always been drugs trafficking, because I witnessed with my own eyes the harm it does to people and also their families. I guess I could never go back and turn back the clock, so to speak. But what I can do now is really to use my current station in life to do good. And I hope that perhaps one day I'll be able to, I can't totally try to redeem myself for what I've done in the past, but hopefully with whatever remaining years I have, I can able to do some good in what I do.
You said that you saw with your own eyes.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Could you share some of the devastation that you witnessed?
Yeah. Maybe just one example that stuck with me even until today. Um, I sold drugs to this tattoo artist. He's a huge consumer of the drugs. After prolonged use, he began to have a lot of conditions, organs failure, in particular the kidney as well as the liver. I still remember being approached by the wife who was carrying.
How old was he?
The drug consumer. He was at the point of time he was probably 31.
That's very young.
That's very young, and the wife was probably the same age. And the wife approached me with a baby in her hands, in her arms, and begged me, in fact, to stop selling drugs to the husband. And that really stuck with me.
What do you know what happened to him?
Not at this point. What I did hear when I went to prison about this particular person is that he had a lot of health issues. Maybe even after I was in prison and all that, I'm sure he would have gotten supply from someone else, some other supplier. And I mean, it scares me to imagine how he is today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've received 19 strokes of the cane. I've heard horror stories from some individuals who have had who've been caned, even 3 is unbearable. Even 1 is unbearable. I would like to ask you to share what it felt like, emotionally, physically, going through the 19 strokes of the cane.
To be clear, I didn't receive 19 strokes at one go, so it was over 3 occasions. First one was 9, second was 7, and then the third time was 3. And I also want to make a distinction between caning that is being ordered by the courts. So that's the usual caning that comes with convictions. And there's also caning that is meted out because you committed an offense in prison. So I want to make that distinction because I got 9 strokes for hurting another inmate when I was in prison. And then the other 10 collectively, the other 10 strokes were actually imposed by the court.
By the courts.
And why is there a need to draw such a distinction? Is because strokes received for committing an offense in prisons, generally they are worse than those that are imposed by the court. So those imposed by the court, people go through the process as a matter of course. 3 strokes, I cane you 3 times and that's it. But if you commit an offense in prison, the way they administered the strokes, the intensity with which the caner administered the strokes is very different and is meant to punish.
And to deter.
And to deter, certainly. I mean, even the same for court-imposed caning. So the first time I was caned was actually for an offense in prison, and that was 9 strokes. It was the caning that I got the most strokes for, and obviously it was painful. The first stroke came down, it was like you're being hit by a truck or a car, the impact. But you just felt the force, the impact. And then the pain starts coming in the form of, I would say, it's as if your butt is on fire, right? And it just gets more painful.
And it's continuous, right?
It's continuous.
9 strokes.
9 strokes.
And what's the interval between each stroke, between the strokes?
About 5 to 10 seconds, but for institution offense, the strokes typically the interval will be a bit longer for you to feel more pain before they administer the next stroke, and then they start the pain cycle all over again. And the more strokes you have, it also means that you will have the same stroke landing on the same place on the skin, and that is going to cause even more pain. And for my 9 strokes, each stroke actually hits 3. There are 3 contact points for each stroke. So you can imagine for 9 strokes that would be 27 contact points.
What do you mean by contact point?
So there is the left cheek and the right cheek of the butt, right? And because of the whiplash effect, there will be a third contact point where the cane will meet your skin somewhere along the thigh, on the outside, on the outside. Yeah. So I call that the 3 contact points, right? And inevitably the strokes will also the same. Maybe you may hit the strokes will hit the same place twice or even 3 times, and the pain, I would say, is bearable because I came out of it, obviously, but you couldn't really do anything about it because you are strapped to this contraption. You can't really move. You tremble a lot because of the pain, and then you just try to control your breathing. I actually prayed while going through it. And okay, so that is the physical aspect. There's also a psychological aspect to it, in a sense that subsequently, when I received my caning for my offenses, prison imposed a system where you had a person who's going to receive the strokes will look at the person before him being caned, right? So you actually see someone in front of you being caned, knowing that it will be your turn very soon, all right? So that could be the psychological aspect.
What about the emotional? When you came out of it?
Relief, extreme relief that this is over, because every prisoner going into prison, and then knowing that there will come a time where the caning will be administered, but not knowing when. And that is the emotional and mental struggle. Once once the caning is done, I would say generally there should be a huge sense of relief. Yeah,
So let me ask you, thanks for sharing this.
no problem.
Let me ask you this, Darren. Um, how did you heal in prison? How did you heal?
Mm,
How did you turn around? I mean,
mm,
was there a specific time or a specific incident
mm,
that triggered that turnaround? Because obviously
mm.
there was a turnaround, right?
Right. You're talking about my change towards
Yeah,
becoming a lawyer, right?
yeah, I mean, becoming a lawyer and reforming as a human being,
Right. Okay.
right?
Yeah. The context was I was in maximum security prison. I had gotten into a fight with another inmates, so I was thrown into solitary confinement. Uh, and then I had an epiphany of sorts. So I felt that there was nothing for me to look forward to. I basically lost all hope in life. The older prisoners were like a mirror to me. I saw my future in them. There was an extreme sense of insignificance. And I
Hmm.
truly believe that if I were to just disappear then from the face of the earth, no one would care. But then I also had an audacious thought that maybe I could turn my life around. And I still think it's the supreme irony of life that I would dream to become a lawyer while languishing in solitary confinement in a maximum security prison. But yes, I made that choice. I realized that, and I read some books, everything could be taken away from us, but our choice to choose our response in any given set of circumstances. So that stuck with me. And I thought, yes, I could do it. It's my life. I had full control. I had full control over how I think, how I want to behave, what I want to achieve. And that's it. But that part is the easy part, right? I did not have the academic qualifications, that's for sure. Worse still, I had lost the ability to speak in English. Hokkien
How
was my
come?
first language. I was expelled from school when I was 17. And in my life of crime, in prisons,
Yeah, it's all basically Hokkien,
Hokkien and Malay.
Malay.
Malay,
Yeah,
Malay for survivor, right?
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, a lot of rivalry between the races. Um, but English was never spoken. Even, I mean, the only time we probably speak English in prisons is to an officer,
Hmm.
a prison officer. Yeah, that's about it.
Hmm. Hmm.
So in that circumstances, I would be laughed at if I were to come out of solitary confinement, went back to the general population and boast to everybody that, hey, I'm going to be a lawyer.
You'd have sounded like a cuckoo. You know?
Yes, exactly.
So,
Yeah.
but you were 26, right? When
Yes,
you sat for the A-level exams, you
that's
sat
correct.
for A-level while you're in prison.
I studied for A level while in prison.
But
I
you
took
sat for the exam
I
outside
sat for the exams outside after my release
at 26.
at 26.
And I gather that you got 4 straight A's for A-levels
I oh yes, 4 A's and a B, right?
and a B.
Yeah.
That's
Mm,
phenomenal, you know.
yeah.
So how did you manage to do this, when you couldn't even speak English well?
Oh, it was okay. What people see is the transition, right? A story of redemption, a story of someone made good.
Yeah,
Uh, I got into limelight for achievements. But people don't really see the journey, and
yeah.
it's a long journey. It's a 10-year journey. Okay, I think I started from the realization that I learned the importance of time. I realized that my life is made out of time. So if I value life, I will value my time. And that prompted me to change my habits. I guess you can say that I became obsessed with making up for lost time. I changed my habits. Whenever I wanted to do anything in prison, I would ask myself, is this going to benefit me 5 years, 10 years down the
Mm,
road?
mm,
Yep. If it doesn't, I'm not going to do it.
mm.
I I had a very simple mantra of sorts. I just needed to be better today than yesterday. So I started with, I just need to learn 5 new English words today. I read the papers from cover to cover. I have a dictionary. I had a dictionary by my side. I will learn new words. I can still remember the first chim word. uh, that I learned. All right. Gurney. Gurney is like an
Gurney,
American way of saying a stretcher or
Thatcher,
patient bed,
yeah.
right? Yeah, that first word. And it's really a bit by bit, because I had time. I just needed to be better today than yesterday, and that was just how I did it.
So Darren, if I may ask you, right?
Right,
I mean, whatever you're saying
right,
obviously makes sense to you because you went through it, this journey. But I can tell you, as someone who's on the other side listening to you, I still can't figure out what triggered that change. Because
mm,
most people would have just succumbed, and
yes,
wallowed in self-pity and really gone deep into the quicksand and not recover. I think for most human beings, that would have happened. But you are exceptional because in solitary confinement, something made that change happen. And I'm trying to understand what was it that made it happen, that change.
to be completely honest,
Yes.
I try not to say this because we are living in a secular society.
Yeah.
But I essentially gave my life to a higher power and said that I couldn't do it. I rely on you. Um, you made me a promise that this would come to being, and I claim that promise. So essentially, that's that.
You're talking about God.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
I really appreciate you saying that because,
Right.
in your case, it's God. And I believe in the case of several other people in similar circumstances, it boils down to belief, you
Yes.
know, self-belief and a
Faith,
belief and
essentially.
faith,
Right.
faith and
Yes.
self-belief. And at the same time, someone else believing in you. In
Yes.
your case, it's God. In somebody else's case, it could be a parent, it could be an
Yeah.
employer, it could be the warden.
Mm.
But I'm very happy that you shared what you just did. It's not that you're proselytizing or anything
Right.
like that, but it's
Mm.
important for us to know that it
Mm.
doesn't just happen, right?
Mm. And maybe to add on to your point, I am indeed grateful to many people along my journey who
Yes,
really helped me. And one of my biggest motivation is actually not to let these people down. These people
yes,
who took a chance on me, believe in me, had faith in me.
yeah.
You're absolutely right.
And do you think our prison system in Singapore was something of an aid, something that helped you rehabilitate and come out stronger, or did it impede? Because we watch Western movies, American movies in
Right.
particular.
Right.
Most people go in there, come out worse, or get
Yeah.
destroyed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've seen cases like that, and it really boils down to personal choice. Like I said earlier, I think everyone has a choice.
yeah.
The odds may be against you, everything may be stacked against you, but you have the choice and you can make it work. But going back to prison systems, I I I went through a transition in prison. Uh, I spent my time in prison during from 1997 until 2009. So within that period, I saw the transition from a very old school prison into a new system. Okay, so to give you some context, the Yellow Ribbon project was implemented then. Within prisons itself, there was a shift towards a human system, which makes people wonder like what was the system before that, right?
Yeah.
And we are being called by name. We were assigned a personal supervisor, and then there was a whole revamp in the philosophy of the prison's service. There was a tagline called Captains of Life,
Right.
which means and you see a lot of educated, passionate young officers uh, taking over what was the old guards.
This is prison officers.
Correct, prisons
And
officers.
and 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 the Yellow Ribbon Project is essentially meant to help you sort of get back into society, right?
I think it's to raise awareness and also acceptance of ex-offenders into society. So that
Right.
works on the outside, but within prisons itself, on the inside, there's a huge change. And the prison school concept was also started at around that time, and I benefited immensely from it. It was a first, when I went to prison school, I got a culture shock. I was steeped in the inmate subculture in maximum security prisons, particularly the gang culture. You shouldn't trust officers, men in blue. Uh, and, and prison school was so different, and education education changed my mind, changed my mindset. It prompted me to challenge my own very narrow beliefs and thinking that the world is just about me and gangs, but there are larger issues. And I became more mature as a result.
You know, you went through this as a young person, right?
Yeah,
At what age were you recruited into the gangs?
14.
14.
Yeah.
Now, do you still see things like this happening in Singapore?
I'm surprised to see that it is still happening. Okay, gangs are very different today.
They operate differently, yeah.
Operate differently. Not only that, I think the government has done a good job of clipping their wings by stopping all the economic activities, their economic activities, because a gang needs an immense amount of financing to
Yeah.
continue the operation. So
And national full-time national service also helped to break it, right? Because at that prime, at 18, you're broken. You go into full-time national service. You think so?
I think that helps, but I do see a lot of people continuing with the culture in NS. I never sent at NS, so I don't know. But
Yeah,
I would think that there are people who after coming out of NS, they still continue doing
I
what they
see.
do. Right,
Hmm.
right.
So what do you think? What more do you think? Very quickly, what more do you think
Mm,
can be done to to help prevent
mm,
young people? And I believe that you're involved, right, in Beacon of Life project, where
yes.
you deal primarily with youth at risk. Uh,
Yeah.
how do you help
Mm,
youth at risk, especially
mm,
preventing them from getting sucked into these
mm,
kind of gangs or similar
right,
influences?
right. I think before I do that, okay, I think the current gang structure is very different. I think the youngsters today have uh, uh, just usurped the gang name or their culture for themselves. What they needed is a sense of identity, belonging, maybe things that they're not getting at home, and maybe that could be a function of today's society, but definitely not for financial gains as in previous decades, right? So they needed something. So what can other good organizations provide them? How to give them good clean fund? How to let them be in a sort of a gang culture, but using the gang for good? Beacon of Life was started to as a self-help group for ex-offenders. So we were all ex-offenders. We were pursuing our studies, and we meet up. And then slowly we realized that our unique experience can be used to benefit marginalized kids or youth at risk in the community. And that's when we started Beacon of Life Academy, or BOLA for short. And that was the whole aim of it. We interacted with the kids like how gang members would. We recruited them from the streets. They were on the streets, committing petty offenses. But uh, what rallied them was football, and we used that as a contact point to bring them into the gang. But we use it for what? We use it to beautify the community. We use it to do community service. So it's essentially still a gang culture. It gives them a sense of identity, belonging, but it's for the good.
And it's redirecting the energies.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Right.
and clearly you have the credibility. When you talk, people listen because you've been there and done it.
I hope, but I do. I co-founded it with another friend, another ex-offender, and I think every ex-offender has a story to tell, and
Yeah,
perhaps you're right. We have the credibility to say
and
what we say.
people listen. So let me ask you this as a final question, right?
Mm.
You lost several years of your life, you know,
More than a decade.
more than a decade of your
Yeah.
life, and the recovery and so on. How do you feel about it? You know, losing all those years.
I'm actually thankful for it. I wouldn't have realized the value of time if I had not lost it. I wouldn't be who I am today without that experience. I'm really thankful for that process. I wouldn't change anything if I had to go back again, honestly, and that's the honest truth.
Thank you,
Right.
Darren Tan. Thank you very much for joining us,
Thank
and
you for having me. Right.
I am just delighted that you're safe, you're back in society, and you're making a difference every day of your life. All the best.
Thank you. Right.